The Canon 1DC was released all the way back in 2012, and since then, Canon haven't taken a photography camera and converted it to their cinema line. Well, today we are looking at Canon's newest and smallest cinema EOS camera. This is the R5 C. Right, so your first question is probably, what's the difference between this and the original R5? Well, the only features from the R5 that the R5 C does not have is the in-body image stabilization, and it also doesn't have compatibility with some weather-sealed Canon speedlight accessories. Otherwise, it has all of the same features that the R5 has, with a few extra additions and refinements. Price-wise, it sits somewhere between the R5 and the C70, which I think makes sense, as it has plenty that the R5 doesn't, but not quite as many features as the C70, especially with the C70 getting a killer update, which we'll cover in a bit. But let's get into the details of what makes the R5 C different. The R5 was absolutely slated for its overheating issues while recording video, and while Canon has improved it with firmware updates, it's still a restriction of the camera. However, with the R5 C, all of these limitations are gone. No more 29-minute 59-second record limit or raw overheating issues. You can record for as long as your battery and media dictate. This has been achieved by the addition of a new internal fan system, which you can see if we look at the camera from several different angles. These two vents allow for air to flow without compromising the dust and weather sealing that the R5 C has, which is actually the same as the R5. In the menu, you can change several parameters for the fan. Fan mode allows you to toggle between automatic and always on. When in always on mode, you can toggle between low, medium and high, and once chosen, the camera will run at this speed constantly. You can then switch to automatic, and in here you can set the speed for both in standby mode and while recording. In standby mode, you have low, medium, high and maximum, and in recording mode, you have just low, medium and high. The fan can get pretty loud depending on what mode you have it set to. Here are some quick audio tests in my quiet home office to show you the kind of noise this thing can kick out. So in always on, this is low. This is middle. Let's go up to high. Now it's going to automatic. So here obviously you can select between fan speed and standby and recording. So if we go to fan speed maximum here, it's going to be much louder. So then we can then see if I hit record. So this is probably the mode that most people want to have it in, because obviously you can have it nice and loud in standby mode, and then when recording, have it nice and low in case you're recording audio. From our time testing the camera, it does seem like the fan speed does dictate how long your batteries will last. I have asked Canon for some official numbers though, and I'll put them down in the description or the comment below or up on screen here if we can get them after I have recorded this piece to camera. During our time with the camera, we didn't have any issues at all with runtime. This is the complete opposite of the experience we had with the R5, which we really struggled with when it was initially released. It really does seem that this new system that Canon has implemented into the R5 C looks to have completely solved the overheating issue, no matter the format you are shooting. While Canon has stated the R5 C is the same sensor and Digic X processor featured in the R5 C now allows you to select between two different base ISOs. This depends on the gamma settings you are shooting in though. In C-Log3 and RAW this is 800 and 3200, in BT709, YDR, PQ and HLG this is 400 and 1600, and in your standard normal BT709 modes this is 160 and 640. When Canon told us this, I found it a bit odd, as the R5 C is supposed to feature the same sensor and processing as the R5, which didn't have any stated second base or native ISO. However, I wanted to see if our up-to-date R5 in our showroom stock had this step in noise performance at 3200 ISO, as the R5 C does. And surprisingly, it does. If we look at both of the R5 and R5 C port capped clips at base 800 and then 3200, we can see that the noise levels are very comparable. We also shot a low light scene on location using both base ISOs, as well as a few different ISOs. If we look at ISO 800 at base ISO 800 and then ISO 800 at base ISO 3200, we can clearly see that the image is much cleaner when in the base ISO 3200 mode. This is what we expect from a dual base ISO sensor, which is great to see. In the menu system, you can actually toggle between the two of them individually, as well as toggle an auto selection mode, which will switch between the base ISOs as you step up and down the ISOs as you're shooting. You can even assign the function to any of the function buttons across the camera. This cycles through the auto mode, low and then high base ISO modes. This is awesome if you'd rather shoot exclusively at the base ISOs and want to quickly switch while shooting. In auto mode, if we toggle between the different ISOs starting at the lowest, we can see the second base kick in at 3200 ISO. When shooting in C-Log 3, you have a range of 160 to 6400 in the low mode and 640 to 25600 in its high mode. I have asked Canon for a chart of how the dynamic range is being mapped across the different ISOs, but they haven't gotten back to me about that yet. When in its photography menu system, I cannot find a way to adjust whether the camera is in the different base ISO mode. This could be for a few reasons, such as how Canon is applying noise reduction as you step up the ISO range. This is something I would love Canon to explain more, and I wish we had slightly more time with the camera to properly delve into this in more detail. But unfortunately, we need to hit the product embargo release date, and this video is pretty damn long already. One of the biggest additions to the R5 C is the updated menu system. What Canon has done here is frankly genius. This new physical 3-position dial on the top of the camera has 3 different positions: photo on the left, off in the middle, and then video on the right. When the dial is turned to the photo mode, you'll be greeted with Canon's familiar stills camera menu system from their modern mirrorless cameras, and this is the same as the R5. However, if we switch the dial to video, we are now greeted with another familiar menu system, the Cinema EOS video menu system. This will now allow you to operate the camera just like the Canon C70 or any of the other Cinema EOS cameras. However, you can also now control the full menu system via the back touchscreen, but this can be a bit fiddly. When switching between the two modes, it does take a few seconds to get to the next one, but that's not going to be a huge deal breaker really. This is a really smart move from Canon, but the only downside I can see from it is, in the stills menu, you cannot shoot any video. So if you're used to shooting video with the Canon stills menu, you can't do that unfortunately, you've got to use the video menu. But to be honest with you, the video menu structure is the far superior one if your primary use case is capturing video, as it features much more video orientated functions than the stills menu system. It's awesome that the R5 C features the exact same stills capabilities as the regular R5, because the R5 is a truly fantastic stills camera. So having that built into a video first camera makes this camera a pretty unique hybrid system. The camera also boots very quickly into either menu system, which isn't surprising. The original R5 was incredibly quick too. With this new video menu comes loads of tools and functions that we have not seen in a Canon mirrorless camera like this before. The home shooting screen is almost identical to the C70, and it features the same touch control system as the C70 does. All you have to do is tap the touch interface button in the bottom left and you can see a range of boxes appear. This means you can now touch on those areas to make changes. The top left brings up a range of shooting settings. Here you can swipe between 3 different pages. There is a range of key shooting settings that you may need to change on the fly or using touch. This is all designed well, as the buttons are large and well laid out for touch control. This is a really nice and simple way of quickly changing all of these settings, and it's nice to see Canon implementing this kind of system. You can also turn an on-screen record button on in the menu, and this puts a box around the standby record indicator on the main menu screen that you can always use to toggle record on and off. Just with other Cinema EOS cameras, the R5 C features My Menu, which allows you to organise every single menu function into your own menu pages so you can quickly access your most used functions without having to delve and search in the full menu system. You can also then assign different My Menu tabs to any of the custom physical buttons so you don't have to scroll through the menu to the My Menu tab. The R5 only has a histogram and zebras internally for exposure assistance, so it's great to see the addition of a few other arguably more powerful exposure tools to the R5 C. First off, you have the ability to change between shutter speed or angle and ISO or gain. You then also have a false color mode, which you can toggle on and off, and you even have a handy index built into the camera to understand where different parts of your image and exposure sit. You have zebras, which you can output on the LCD or HDMI or both. You can have 2 different zebra percentages on, and this is handy as you can set 2 different values, one for your highlights for example, and one for your skin tones. You then have a waveform or vector scope that you can change a few parameters of, so you can tailor it to exactly what you want. The only negative thing here is the inability to freely move this around the screen, as they are fixed to either left or right. With the addition of these exposure assists, there is also a range of monitoring tools. The camera features the ability to de-squeeze anamorphic lenses in camera, which can either be output on the back LCD or the HDMI port. This won't record the squeeze, but will note it in the metadata. Currently, you have the ability to de-squeeze 1.3, 1.8 and 2 times anamorphic lenses. The camera also features a magnification tool. This allows you to punch in 3 different levels. Even when you are recording, you can use the set button or toggle the joystick in to cycle through the different zooms. This also works while you're in slow and quick mode as well now. You can also move this around your frame using the joystick at the back of the camera. This really is a great tool for focusing. There is a huge range of different marker options. For all of these, you can change the color of them all. You have a center mark, which you can change between 4 different looking markers. Then there is a horizontal marker, a vertical marker, and a grid layout marker. You also have a range of aspect markers and a range of colors and styles. You then have a safe area marker, which you can customize again. And lastly, you have user customizable markers, which you can define the exact parameters of, which is really handy. All of these markers have the option to output onto either the HDMI, LCD, or both. With Canon's fantastic dual pixel autofocus also comes focus guide, which works just as great as normal. Line up the triangles and boom, you've got focus confirmation. You of course have focus peaking, which you can output on both the LCD or out via HDMI or to both. You also have 2 presets for peaking. This means that you can set up 2 different amounts and then switch for different scenarios. You can then change color, gain and frequency of the peaking. Like the C70, the R5 now also supports user-loaded LUTs, which would be great for people wanting to quickly turn around their footage with a specific look already in mind. You can create your own custom 3D LUTs in editing and grading software or download free-to-use or commercial files, which are widely available online. For compatibility with the look file function, these must be 17 grid or 33 grid 3D LUT files in .cube format, with 33 grid 3D LUTs allowing for more accurate image conversion. They should also be designed for full range signal input and output. While it is possible to register 3D LUTs that are designed for other signal configurations, these won't give you a correct conversion. To get LUTs into the camera, it's pretty simple but also very specific. Once you've found a LUT you like, you'll need to grab an SD card as the camera will not see LUTs loaded onto your CF Express card. You then have to go into the custom picture profile that you want to load your LUT into. Make sure to use a profile that uses the same gamma and color space that your LUT uses. You can then scroll down to the Look File Setup tab, where you can then register your LUT. I don't suggest adding these LUTs into your main profiles, but instead creating your own custom profiles and then loading them in. You can also toggle your LUT on and off within the custom picture menu too. One thing that I would like to see Canon add is the ability to shoot with a given LUT applied, but not apply it to the clip when shooting a compressed format. This isn't an issue when shooting RAW, but it isn't even carrying over the LUT over as metadata for post, so some kind of metadata change for RAW would also be great to see. A system like how Red handles LUTs with their R3D files would be ideal. The camera also features a built-in view assist setting, which allows you to apply a view assist to your back LCD, viewfinder or HDMI output. You have LUTs for BT709 and 2 HDR assist modes, one for 16,000% and one for 400%. You can even assign this to a key so you can quickly toggle this on and off, which is nice if you don't want to use your own LUT. As with previous Cinema EOS cameras, the R5 C features an auto black balance feature. If you are unfamiliar with a black balance, this feature is only really available on more video focused cameras, and it is basically calibrating the sensor for no light or true black. If your camera has a poor black balance, it will usually exhibit weird or incorrect colours in the darker areas of your image and just be noisier in the darker areas than normal. CMOS sensors don't need to be black balanced as much as older sensor types, but there isn't anything negative about getting into the habit of black balancing your camera often. Canon recommends running an ABB in a few different circumstances. When using the camera for the very first time or after a long period of not using it, after sudden or extreme changes in ambient temperature, after changing the sensor mode, after activating or deactivating slow and fast motion recording, including switching to another special recording mode, after changing the shooting frame rate when slow and fast motion recording is activated, After resetting the camera's settings, when executing a black balance, make sure you're using the port cap that comes with your camera and not a lens with a lens cap. This is because you don't want any light hitting that sensor. Go into the menu and hit ABB. This process will take around a minute depending on the frame rate. When the confirmation message pops up, hit set and you're done. As we normally do with our reviews, we wanted to get out and about with the camera in a more creative way to shoot some real world footage. We didn't have the time to do something as structured as we would have hoped for, but we did manage to take the camera out on a couple of occasions to shoot some footage, so let's take a look at it. Using the camera out and about was an absolute pleasure. We've used the R5 a bunch of stills in the past, and cinema EOS cameras have plenty of production, so we felt at home shooting with the R5 C. Let us know what you think of the footage down in the comments below. Another massive addition to the R5 C is the option to shoot 3 different qualities of RAW: LT or light, ST or standard, and HQ or high quality. You can shoot all 3 in both the Super 16 and Super 35 mode, but in its full frame sensor mode, you cannot shoot HQ, just ST. These are all 12-bit RAW formats that change in data rate as you step through them. If we look at the data rates that Canon has provided for 8K full frame 30p, we can see that ST is roughly 2 gigabits per second and LT is roughly 1.3 gigabits per second. And at 5.9K Super 35 30p, HQ is roughly 2.12 gigabits per second, ST is roughly 1.05 gigabits per second, and LT is roughly 700 megabits per second. We can work out the rough compression ratios of each flavour of Canon's RAW by doing some quick maths. Bear in mind that this is an approximation because this is presuming that Canon are using fixed data rates for their compression, but this probably isn't the case. We first need to work out the lossless data rate for a given format. Let's do it for 8K ST. For this, we take the horizontal resolution, times that by the vertical resolution, times that by the frame rate, times that by the bit depth, which we know is 12, and then we divide it all by 1000, and then divide it by 1000 again. This will give us the lossless data rate in megabits per second. We then know that the data rate from 8K ST at 30p is roughly 2 gigabits or 2000 megabits per second. So we can now divide the lossless result by 2000 to get roughly 6, which means the ratio for 8K ST is 6:1. So HQ looks to be roughly 3:1, ST roughly 6:1, and LT roughly 10:1. In regards to image quality, we wanted to show you the difference between the 3 different flavours of RAW by shooting our chart and a real world scene with lots of detail. As you would expect, the more compressed you go, the more artifacts of this compression you see and the quality drops. So with high detailed scenes, you'll most likely see a difference between the 3. However, for lower detailed shots, you will barely see a difference here. Just do some testing for yourself before shooting to understand exactly which compression you will need to choose. Having the option to shoot in all three of these is great, as you can choose the exact compression you need on a shot-by-shot basis. The R5 C features the same dual card slot as the R5, so one CF Express Type B and one SD UHS 2 slot. When recording RAW, it has to be a CF Express Type B card, but for all of the other primary recording formats, aka XFAVC, MP4 and Proxies, you can record to SD cards as well. But you will need to make sure they are V90 cards for the higher data rate formats. Links to recommended media are in the description. In the recording mode menu, 2 new modes have also been added. So you now have normal, slow and fast motion, slow and fast with audio, frame recording and interval recording. Frame recording allows you to limit the amount of frames. This could be handy if you're shooting stop motion. And interval recording is a slightly tweaked time-lapse mode, and this allows you to define the time interval and the frame rate. If you're in a mode that isn't normal, there will be an indicator to the left of the standby indicator here to let you know. As well as RAW, you can also shoot XFAVC, MP4 and Proxies. And this is all the same as the R5. So you have the same great oversampled 4K, which looks fantastic out of the camera. Another really good addition to the R5 C is the camera's ability to shoot 8K full frame up to 60 frames per second. And this is quite remarkable given the cost and size of the camera. You are limited to just shooting in RAW LT, but the footage looks so nice. There aren't many cameras on the market that can achieve 8K 60p RAW internally, the only other ones being the Red V Raptor, Sony Venice 2 and the Kinefinity Mavo Edge 8K, which are all much higher priced cameras. The big catch of it though is that you will need to have an external power source powering the camera to capture in this format optimally. This is a limitation of the LP6 batteries used internally, as when compared to larger video camera batteries, they are a bit small and underpowered. With the current firmware on the camera we have in for testing, you can record 8K 60 using just an LP-E6N, but this disables the power going to any EF adapted or RF lenses, or the Tascam XLR unit, and I presume any other hot shoe mounted accessory that draws power. Canon officially are saying that the camera requires external power when recording 8K RAW over 30p. Even though the camera does allow you to record 50 or 60p with just the battery, the power is not enough, hence performance is not guaranteed. However, if you shoot with fully manual lenses that do not require any power to operate, then you can shoot 8K 50 or 60 with just an LP6. Just bear in mind that this isn't something Canon are officially recommending, so do it at your own risk. It's great to see Canon squeezing as much out of the camera as possible, and while it is a tad annoying you do need to use an external power supply to shoot at this higher frame rate when using native RF mount lenses, it's great to have the option at least. Now, considering that the 8K 60 requires power, let's talk about powering the R5 C. As we mentioned earlier, the R5 C uses the same LP6 battery as the R5 and plenty of Canon stills cameras before it. But these aren't all born equal, so make sure to check the milliamp hour of the battery you're picking up and the variant, as their features do differ slightly. Luckily, the R5 C features 2 ways of powering it externally. The first is the new DR-E6C DC coupler designed for the R5 C, which can be used with the CA-946 power adapter, which will be the most secure out of the 2 options. One nice touch on the R5 C is the ability to feed a dummy battery into the camera while also having the battery cover closed by using this little flap here to have the cable come out of. The other way is to use the USB-C port on the side, which is PD rated. This means you can use Canon's PD-E1 power adapter or a PD rated power bank or supply, which I think is going to be a solid way of powering the camera for long periods of time without lugging around loads of LP6s. Say for example this piece of camera here, which I'm shooting on the R5 C, and I've got the power bank that I'm about to mention plugged into it, so that way I can keep recording for the hour or so this is going to take me to record. So we grabbed this PD rated 25,600 mAh Anker power bank for roughly £100. To put that in perspective, a single LP6NH is a 2,130 mAh battery and costs around £115 per unit. So you could either rig the camera out around having a larger power bank attached to your rig, or if you want to run more stripped down, attach a power bank to a belt clip or stuff it into a pocket or a bag with a long USB-C PD rated cable, and you've got much longer run times at a much more affordable price point. Not to mention the power bank can also charge extremely quickly with the included PD power supply that came with ours, and can also power other accessories like your phone or laptop. Just bear in mind when powering via this method, the camera needs an LP6 installed, and if you want to be able to charge the battery in the camera, which is only possible when the camera is powered off, You will only be able to do it with LP6N or NH batteries. While charging a battery with the camera off, you can see the status of the charge on the top screen. In 1 hour of using our Anker power bank to charge the battery in the camera, it managed to charge the battery roughly 40 to 50%, which is pretty good. I also ran a quick test to see how long a single LP6 would last recording 8K 50. And with several card formats, we managed to record roughly 41 minutes before the camera powered itself down due to loss of power. This was also with the camera's fan setting set to always on the low profile. Changing the fan settings, like I mentioned earlier, does change the estimated runtime on the right hand side of the camera by a sizable amount. But if we do some quick maths, we can roughly say that the Anker battery is 12 times the capacity of the LP6NH that I used for this test. So it should power the camera while recording 8K 50 RAW LT for roughly 492 minutes, or roughly just over 8 hours. Canon has actually provided power consumption specs as well as recording times for 4 different formats, which is pretty damn handy as well. The R5 C is compatible with the Canon BG-R10 and WFT-R10 battery grips, so if you want to double your run times while still using LB6, then this could be a good option. When using the PD-E1 power supply, you can charge both batteries simultaneously. However, if you're going to want to rig this up into some kind of rig, you may want to look at powering it either via USB-C like we mentioned earlier, or there are plenty of dummy LP6 to DTAP cables that will allow you to adapt out to other battery types like MPF or V-Lock. Honestly though, this will really depend on how you want to rig your camera out. We'll be doing a how to upgrade video once we have our demo camera in and some more accessories have come out for the camera, so stay tuned for that. Physically, the camera has changed a good amount. It's a bit deeper than the R5 to accommodate the new cooling system, though it's still very light at just roughly 680 grams for the body only. However, it does share a lot of its physical design with the R5. If we start off looking from the top down, this is where we can really see a big difference in size between the two. On the top, we can see that a little bit has changed as well. We mentioned the new 3-position power switch, but we also have Canon's new multi-accessory shoe, which we first saw with the XF605 and is now also on the R3. This means that it will be compatible with the current range of multi-shoe accessories, as well as the Tascam XLR 2D, which for people wanting to run XLR microphones will be a must-have accessory, which we'll have a look at in a bit. On the front of the camera, you have the bright red C70 EOS badge and a tally light, which will be really handy when filming people. This could be especially useful for content creators that film themselves, which this camera could be good for. It's actually what we're using to record this piece of camera with right now. It also has a nice red shutter button to again make it obvious that this camera has been made with video acquisition at the forefront of its design. On the left, the R5 C features the same inputs and outputs as the R5, which includes the same HDMI micro output, which can be paired with a Ninja 5 Plus for external ProRes RAW recording in a mix of resolutions and frame rates, while also having the ability to record MP4 or XFAVC proxy internally while outputting. It's a shame that it's still a micro HDMI port, but I can understand adding a full-size HDMI or even an SDI would increase the design process, size of the camera, and overall cost, so I guess it makes sense. Anyway, just above the regular ports, there is a new DIN 1.0 2.3 timecode terminal. You will be able to grab a BNC adapter fairly easily and affordably, links to some of those in the description below. This would be handy if you're wanting to integrate the R5 C into a multi-camera production. On the bottom, we have a slight oversight from Canon, a single Q20 thread. Canon, surely you could have put another thread or at least a locating pin here for people who don't want to run a cage on this camera. I know that the R5 C has these little locating pins on the left and right, but this is such a simple, small addition that will make a big difference for people not wanting to rig their camera up, as well as cage designers. The button layout overall is pretty similar to the R5, and there are 13 assignable buttons across the body which you can configure to your exact preference. When you switch menu systems, your preferences and configurations are kept separate so you can configure the camera for each different shooting situation. You can also change what all of the dials do on the camera as well. This includes the control ring that is featured on some RF lenses and the EF to RF control ring adapter, which I like to assign to aperture when possible. Canon can even declick these control rings so you can have a smooth throw instead of a clicked one. As well as that, you can also change a few parameters of RF lenses. And because these lenses are focused by wire, you can change which direction the focus ring turns depending on if you are used to one way or the other. You can toggle off or on the ability to have manual focus override and enable or disable focus override. We've mentioned the Tascam XLR module a few times on our channel because we've been looking forward to it, and it's great that Canon is finally getting a good audio solution for their mirrorless cameras, as it's something that they have lacked in comparison to Sony and Panasonic for a while now. So it's great to finally have a way to do this nicely. Tascam have co-developed this with Canon and Fuji, so you can get the model in 3 different versions. One using Canon's multi-shoe, one using Fujifilm's digital shoe, and an analog version which can be used by plugging it directly into a mini jack input. The module can be powered directly via the multi-shoe or via a removable battery box that uses 2 AA batteries. The mic mount is also removable in case you don't want to mount a mic there. The shoe mount is also replaceable, which is a really nice touch, as fingers crossed this makes it a quick and easy fix if something does go wrong with the mount, as with some other XLR modules this is a pretty common failure point. The module itself has all the audio bells and whistles you can expect. It has 2 XLR TRS combo jacks and a stereo mini jack input, features line and mic level recording, and can provide phantom power. It also has a cold shoe on the top, which would be great if you're wanting a wireless receiver on top or any other kind of accessory you may need to mount there. There is also a dual purpose mini jack output, which can be used to either output to a mini jack on the camera for internal recording or as a headphone jack output for monitoring. The preamp inside of the module is pretty good, and it also features an analog to digital converter, as it is taking the analog signal and transmitting it to the camera in digital form. Here's some audio that we recorded with the R5 C, the Tascam adapter, and our MK600 boomed above me. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. The R5 C features the same 45 megapixel full frame 36x24mm sensor with a pixel pitch of 4.38 and the same Digic-X processor as the R5. We haven't really done our regular camera testing with the R5, so we thought we'd run some tests with the R5 C. Let's start by looking at how the camera performs in regard to aliasing. The R5 C performs really well with only a little bit of aliasing, which you can see on our chart here. When it comes to rolling shutter, performance with the R5 is pretty good. However, it isn't quite as quick as the sensor in the A7S III, but for an 8K full frame sensor, at its price point, it performs pretty well. For our Latitude tests, we wanted to compare the R5 C to the C70 and the FX3. We used our trusty Otis 55mm f1.4 using a Canon RF to EF adapter and a Metabones E to EF adapter. Each camera was shot at its own native ISO, and we used false colour on both the R5 C and the C70, and then zebras on the FX3 to expose mid-grey on our chart. For the under tests, the scene was lit for f2, and we then stopped down our lens a stop at a time until 4 stops under, where we then did third stop increments. And for the over tests, we lit the scene for f16, and then opened up our lens a stop at a time until 4 stops, where we then did 3 stop increments. We thought we would include the extra third stop increments, as it will allow us to see performance much more precisely between the cameras. Anyway, we're going to let the results of our test play out now. If you want to skip ahead, you can see the time code for it on screen now. By default, there are 7 different custom picture profiles you can choose from. C1, which is BT709 YDR, C2, which is C-Log3, C3, which is PQ, C4, which is HLG, C5, which is BT709 standard, C6, which is EOS standard, and C7, which is EOS neutral. Past that, you have a good number of user profiles that you can set and define. You can go into each of these and edit a huge range of options. Once you've tweaked what you want, you can then save your custom profile and even copy them to an SD card so you can transfer them between your cameras if you need to. It's great to have such a large range of colour modes in the R5 C. C3 is great, and I really like the 709 YDR profile when you want to get a good image straight out of camera. We have put a link in the description below to some of Canon's scientific LUTs for their different log profiles, which will be handy for you to have if you pick the R5 C up, or any other Canon camera for that matter. We did a video back in April of 2021 breaking down the 1.3.0 firmware update for the R5, which detailed how to get the most out of the R5 when shooting in RAW and the different C logs, as well as a bunch more. So this video is definitely worth checking out after this one. Link to that will be on the end screen and will be linked in the description. In this video, we also looked at how the R5 matched with the C300 Mark III and the C500 Mark II while shooting in C-Log3. So let's take a quick look at that footage now. For this, we shot side by side in both our studio and outside with the cameras in both C-Log2 and C-Log3. Unsurprisingly, it's fairly easy to match these cameras. However, shooting C-Log3 and Cinema Gamut on the R5 makes it a far easier task. With the R5 C image being identical in these situations to the R5 C will be just as easy to match to other cinema cameras, just like these examples. As the camera features 2 card slots, you have a range of different modes for utilising both slots. In the menu, you can choose between a few different modes. You have off, main and proxy, main and sub-record, and main and audio record. With off, the camera will just record to whatever card the format you are recording demands. Main and proxy recording allows you to write one RAW to CF Express and then an XFAVC or MP4 428-bit proxy file to the second. This would be good for an online-offline editing workflow. Main and sub recording allows you to select another format and resolution combo to record to the second card, as well as RAW to your primary. Lastly, main and audio will write your primary format to CF Express, which still has audio, and then just an audio track to the SD card. It's great to have such a vast amount of options to choose from, and no matter what you're wanting to do, you probably have the ability to record how you want to. You can also change the system frequency between 24, 50 and 59.94, aka for cinema, PAL and NTSC use. It's great to have the option to switch between these on the fly no matter what standard you're wanting to adhere to. The R5 C features the same dual pixel CMOS AF2 autofocus system that is present in the R5. But because of its 2 independent menu systems, for photo and video, it means that tweaking the autofocus settings between them is a little different. In the stills menu, it is the same as the R5 with the most recent update. However, in the video mode, it was more like adjusting the autofocus settings on a C70 or C300 Mark III, but with the added processing power that the R5 has over them. This means you can control the response and speed like these cameras, which is something you couldn't do in the same way with the original R5. The stills mode does feature some things that the video autofocus system doesn't, such as drag touch autofocus, tracking, and a more mature object tracking system in general. This is a bit of a shame, as if you're in the photo menu system, you cannot film at all, which means when you're in the video menu system, you're going to miss out on these features, which you would mostly have access to on the R5. Hopefully this is something that Canon can update on the video side of the menu ASAP via firmware, but overall, AF performs much more reliably than the C70 in the video menu, which is great to see. When it comes to processing the footage out of the R5 C, it behaves pretty much exactly the same as the R5 formats do in post, which means you will need a pretty powerful machine if you are shooting in RAW or H.265. We graded most of the footage in this video in Resolve, and we found lowering the timeline resolution down to 1080p made things smoother, and then when you want to export, change your timeline up to whatever resolution you're wanting to export at. Luckily, with the camera's proxy system, as well as a lot of NLEs featuring one now 2, you can easily get around performance issues. There are plenty of videos on YouTube covering the performance of the R5, which can apply to the R5 C's formats as well, so we won't be going in depth here. As with any video camera, there are going to be plenty of key accessories for the R5 C. However, as it's such a new camera, a lot of rigging accessories that will inevitably be released for it are not out yet, and due to the increased size, some cages may not work. However, I did get to try 2 small rig options, the Black Mamba full cage and the regular full cage. Both of these fit onto the R5 C absolutely fine, but I'm sure Small Rig, as well as the other rigging brands, will update whether their cages work or release new cages for the R5 C ASAP. There's a range of Canon native RF mount options now, with more and more coming out regularly, and these perform excellently on the R5 C, as you get to use the amazing autofocus, great optical performance of the lenses, and control the aperture through the control ring, which is really handy. However, there are some good options from third parties too. So no matter what you need, if you want to go native, there are plenty of options available. Because of the short flange depth of RF mount, you can adapt plenty of lenses onto the camera very easily with the correct lens adapter. We covered this pretty extensively in our Red Komodo How to Upgrade video, focusing on lenses and adapters, and we also have an RF-ND adapter video which will be coming out soon as well. And this will be really handy because obviously one of the biggest downfalls of this camera is it doesn't have internal NDs. So adapting EF lenses and using an ND adapter is a great way to get around this and makes it a really great run and gun camera. We will also be doing an how to upgrade video once we have our demo camera in, and some more accessories, so stay tuned for that. As the R5 C features a lot of similar specs and details to the R5, I wanted to quickly run through some of the key things they share internally and externally. The cameras both have the same EVF, multi-angle back touch LCD, CF Express Type B and SD card slots, and they also have the same menu system on the photography side as the R5, which means it is a stellar stills camera capable of capturing 45 megapixel stills up to 20 frames per second. This makes it such a great hybrid option, as it has plenty of stills orientated features packed into it, such as time-lapse shooting, focus and exposure bracketing, and everything else you'd expect from a Canon stills camera. With the release of the R5 C, Canon have also announced a new firmware update which will be released in March for the C70. This will introduce some awesome new additions, such as the ability to shoot Cinema Raw Light or LT 4K recording options directly to V90 SD cards internally. This is something that people have been asking for, and it's great to see Canon achieving this with the C70. This update will also add XFABC proxy recording, interval recording, and a frame limit recording mode. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy of the firmware so we can learn more about it and see how much extra image quality it will squeeze out of the C70. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss our video covering this update. So with 3 cameras from Canon that are now so close in specs and price, what do you choose? Well, I actually think it's quite simple. Price-wise, the R5 C sits in the middle of the R5 at $4299 and the C70 at $4798. If you are planning on shooting any video at all, and that's even if you're a photographer doing some video every now and then please spend the extra £200 to get the R5 C, because it is much nicer to shoot video with due to the improved thermal management to help with recording times, and the menu system is much nicer and features tons of tools that make shooting video so much faster and easier. Now, the choice between the R5 C and the C70 is a bit harder, especially with the new firmware we just mentioned coming out for the C70. The benefits of the C70 over the R5 C are the internal NDs, improved inputs and outputs, the dual gain output sensor has more dynamic range and you can capture C-Log2, and you can also shoot RAW and good XFABC formats to SD cards. It has a larger battery with options to get power out for accessories from that battery with third-party batteries, and it has built-in XLR inputs, whereas the R5 C needs the Tascam unit to get the same functionality, which would actually make it more expensive than the C70. So if you are solely shooting video, I would suggest the C70 over the R5 C for most people. However, if you are looking for a true hybrid camera that you can use as a professional photographic and videography tool, the R5 C makes a lot of sense. The big pros of the R5 C over the C70 is its incredible autofocus performance, its form factor, its ability to capture 8K RAW at good frame rates, its sensor is full frame and has dual base ISO, its ability to capture great downsampled 4K XFABC, its ability to capture 4K 120p using its full sensor, and the fact that it is a stills camera as well. If you want some more detailed advice on which camera is best for you, as well as which other kit you may need with it, give us a call via the details below. So in conclusion, the R5 C is what videographers wanted the original R5 to be, and it's great to see Canon take all of the feedback they had from the R5 and make a video first version of it at a very small price increase. Now it does have some stiff competition in the Z9 from Nikon and Alpha 1 from Sony, but as it stands, the R5 is the most video focused hybrid on the market, and it pretty much solves everything that people have wanted to be fixed since the R5 was released. But the big question is, for video guys, will it dethrone the A7S III? Let us know what you think of the Canon R5 C and any other questions you have down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and make sure to hit the subscribe button, and thank you so much for watching.